So, as a runner, I meet a lot of people who really struggle with running long distances comfortably. Every long run they do feels like a fight for their life. They struggle with keeping an even pace, their heart rate spikes, they're always out of breath, their legs burn a lot. And as a result, they have to do a lot of their miles walking to meet their distance goal. And this just takes a lot out of them, like mentally and motivationally as a runner. But for the runners who can stick with it and find a constant pace with a controlled heart rate in an easy run, it gets better. And I often talk to these runners several weeks after they've been struggling, and suddenly they kind of express things are just like easier. And they really don't understand why. But I know exactly what happened. If you're new here, my name is Daniel Steamer. I'm an endurance sports coach specializing in running, and I've personally run over 130 races, including 3 marathons, 2 ultras, and 3 half Ironman. And I'm getting ready for my fourth half Ironman in just a few weeks. But beyond that, I coach everyday adult athletes from their first race to their biggest adventures, using fitness as a way to help them live their biggest life. New runners in today's fitness culture are often bombarded by messages like no pain, no gain, pain is weakness leaving the body, you can rest when you're done. This idea that you have to push hard, and if it's not hard, you're not working, you're not serious. But in my experience, that messaging is just wrong for people who are new to fitness, especially people who are new to running. And so today I want to take a quick look at what's going on with new runners, why going hard at the start makes running harder than it needs to be, and why one day it just becomes easier for people to run distances. Because most people who hear this message go out too hard, they struggle in the first few minutes of their run, and then they have to pull back and they're not actually getting a real workout out of it. So this is the equivalent of like going to the gym with the plan to lift weights, doing 1 rep at your max weight that you can lift, and then being too tired to do any more of the workout. It just doesn't translate into gains and adaptation. But the thing is in the moment, it feels like it's working. It feels like pushing your hardest is the right thing to do. It's just that over time, it doesn't add up. And that's because running adaptation for new runners is mostly a result of volume. You need to get enough volume in regularly to get the early level adaptations at the cardiovascular level. I'm talking about lung capacity, heart strength, and more slow twitch fibers in your muscles that are just going to support you when you run. And so the goal in the early days of running is not to burn yourself out, but to run at a sustainable pace so you can continuously get the right amount of volume in to get those adaptations built as quickly as possible. If you push too hard too early and have to take a lot of breaks as a result, you're just not going to get those adaptations. And I'm not talking about one bad running session or even a bad week. I'm talking about a repeated pattern where all you do is run at max intensity and burn yourself out before you can hit your distance goal. And I just want to be clear here, pushing hard has its places once you have a strong foundation. And there's one important point to this. Base development doesn't have a schedule behind it. It's not like I can look at one runner and say, oh, if you stick to this type of plan in 6 weeks, running distance will be easier for you. And then look at this other runner and say, oh, for you, it's 10 weeks. It really just shows up based on when your body adapts based on the inputs you're giving it. And so if you're somebody who's still in those early weeks and you are grinding away, you actually might be closer to developing a base than you think if you make some changes. And so the fix here isn't to run harder, it's to run easier. The goal at the start is to run at a pace that's sustainable for the entire duration of your training session. This will create a bunch of changes in how you feel, but also it'll give your body a chance to actually get the full workout effect. And over time, you'll start seeing this physiological effects of being able to breathe easier, your heart rate will stay lower, your muscles won't fatigue as fast. In these early weeks, there's no focus on speed, there's no focus on hills, none of that. That comes later after your base is built. The start is just about consistency and letting your body absorb those changes. And none of these changes, the better oxygen absorption, better blood flow to your muscles, less fatiguing muscles, none of that happens from just doing one hard run. It happens from consistent effort over time. And that's because speed is the output of building a good engine. It's not what builds the engine to begin with. When I first started running years ago, I struggled with this concept too. I used to go out so hard thinking I just need to run a mile and I'll get and do it as fast as I can, and that way I'll develop myself into a really fast mile runner, and then maybe I'll start pushing to 2 miles or something like that. I didn't honestly really have a plan, and it didn't matter because I couldn't get past a quarter of a mile with having to stop because my lungs were on fire, my legs were burned out, my heart rate was through the roof, and I just needed to take a break. And I stuck with this for way too long. I spent months going on daily 1 mile runs up around my apartment and really, honestly, never making it past that quarter mile mark without trouble. Then I learned about running easier, low heart rate running. And that really changed everything once I started committing to it. I had to run super slow. It was really frustrating at first, but within a few weeks, I was able to complete a mile without feeling like my legs were burned out or that my chest was going to explode or that I couldn't breathe. And then after more weeks of committing to that, my heart rate evened out. My heart rate stayed pretty low when I was running. And I would finish the run feeling like I could start doing more, that it would be easy to do more. And that's how I started pushing my distance. And that foundation has fueled everything I do now. And after years of working that way, mixing in other work now that I have that base, my pace for an easy run is pretty fast now. The moment that running is going to get easier doesn't just announce itself. It's not like one day you just wake up and you're like, wow, I know today I can go for a run easier. It's just something that kind of sneaks up on you. You'll go for a run, and at the end of it, you'll just kind of feel like, you know what? I could feel like I could do more. Like, I don't feel like I need to stop right now. And that's when you know something is changing. It looks like easier breathing. It feels like a smoother, lower heart rate. It's less fatigue in your legs. You finish your run without having really tracked the distance and counting down to when you can stop. That's when it's time to now start thinking about things like pushing your distance or working on pace because you have a solid foundation to work with. And just one note on this, if you're really new to running, there's a big difference between pushing super hard and having to stop because you can't keep going versus strategic run walking. Doing run walk intervals at the start to get to the point where you can run continuously for a mile or two or 20 to 30 minutes is totally acceptable. The difference is you're not pushing yourself to the point where you have to stop. And so, just to wrap this up, right? The struggle is always real when you're a new runner. Like, running is not an easy thing to do if you have not been doing it and are not conditioned for it. It takes time for your lungs and your heart and your muscles to adjust. It takes time for your joints and your bones to strengthen. And so, give your body that time by running easy, like we've been talking about. You will get there too. That's what those early miles are all about. If you find this kind of info about running useful, please subscribe. My goal with this channel is simple: to give adult athletes the information they need to train well and live their biggest adventures.